Check 1 2 1 2. Okay gang, in this video I'm gonna show you how I would detail a Malaysian or Southeast Asian junction, intersection, whatever you want to call it. And I have this empty junction here. As you can see, over there is the suburban town, and over there is the main area of this Katak town city. And this road is probably going to lead to a future build. I'm going to build a floating mosque in the future. And we're going to start this build with intersection marking tool, which is sort of like a game-changing tool where you can draw lines around the junction, especially vital for curves, because otherwise it's almost impossible to do curves around the junction. I do have a reference, by the way. I do have a reference for this junction, and I'm referencing a junction from my hometown and one of my main references for Katak town. And take note that every mods or assets used will be labeled top right. Okay, and let's start with intersection marking tool. I'll show you my hotkey for it. Yeah, Shift K is my hotkey. You can set it to your liking. You press Shift K and you can edit the node and you can start drawing lines. I'm using like 4 bicycle lanes, roads with bicycle lanes, so the marking is going to be a bit different from my reference, right? I'm going to do 2 curves, one for cars. I'm going to do a solid white line. The other one is for bicycles. So yeah, there you go, just like that. So easy. You don't know how hard it is. Before this you'd have to do decals manually. You can also do yellow lines. Pretty much there's no limit to what you can do with this tool. Okay, we've done the curves. Now we're gonna do, you can even do, this is a new feature where you can do stop lines. And just like that, you get like, this is what a stop line looks like, right? It's very thick. I think that's all for intersection marking tool. Now we're gonna do the yellow box in the middle. This is quite common in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. And it's usually to indicate, I'm not a technical guy, I don't really know the usage of everything, but as a driver I think it's to prevent people from stopping or parking, to indicate there's no parking or stopping. And if you look at the reference, the lines are very thick for the box, so I'm going to use these yellow lines and I'm going to double up like this. Yeah, I think that's enough. I don't want to use too much decals because there's a limit to how many props or decals that you can use in this game. So this should be enough thickness. Things don't really need to be too perfect, because even if you look in real life, it's not too perfect. So, and then we do the X in the middle. Just take some of these lines and reuse them. You can even overlap some of these lines so it doesn't look too perfect. Another thing you can do when dealing with decals is just move it to pick only decals and press page down, and it will page up for elevate, page down for, what's the opposite of elevate? Delevate. And so that it doesn't look too vibrant, so it looks a bit more, it blends in a bit more with the road. Now we have the X, and then we're going to start doing the pedestrian crossings, right? So pedestrian crossings, these are the vanilla ones, right? And I'm gonna keep them here for now just as a reference for me to paint over my decals over it. This is a crossing decal. I use the worn one, and because it looks lived in, looks a bit more realistic, I guess. And you can use prop line tool to determine the spacing and line them up like this. And in my reference, the crossing decals have a bit of distance from the stop line, but I don't think we can do that here because these vanilla crosswalks indicate where your sims will cross, so you don't want your decals to be further from that. Page down, because some of this is going up the curb, and yeah, now it looks not too obvious. Let's do it for all. In my reference, oh yeah, before I do that, I'm going to show you how I cover up these vanilla crosswalks. I use the ploppable asphalt, and there probably are mods in the workshop saying that the mod will delete crosswalks. Might work, might not work. Even if it works, the ones that I've used have messed a bit with performance and take away some FPS, so I decided not to use them. And the ploppable asphalt, you can actually change its color so you can match it with your road. In my case, I want my roads to look a bit more patchy, a bit imperfect, so a bit more Malaysian, I guess. So yeah, so I don't mind the ploppable asphalt having a different sort of darker color to it. You can see we've covered up the vanilla crosswalks, and up next we're gonna do, oh yeah, we're gonna do the lines. Like I said in my reference, right? You can, I mean, this is perfectly up to you. Different states, even in Malaysia, different states have different design when it comes to crosswalks, right? But in my reference, which is Remban city center, it has these sort of like frames to it, so I'm gonna do that. And there you go. We've done the crosswalks, the Xbox, the curve lines, stop lines, and we kind of have an okay looking junction right now. Very Malaysian, very Southeast Asian. And up next we're gonna do arrows. And oh yeah, there's one thing I need to do before I do arrows, which is, let me make it a bit brighter. Usually in stop lines, right, you would have sort of like a white line to sort of like finish off your dash. You have dash lines, and then as you enter the stop line, you have a solid line. This is to indicate that you can't, you know, switch lanes. Once you get here, just stick to your lane, right? I mean, Malaysians, we don't really follow all these rules. Nobody does. But as a guide, it has to be there anyway. Even at the yellow boxes, if you're Malaysian, you know what I'm talking about. People sometimes just stop in the middle of the yellow box, the yellow X. If you've never driven in Southeast Asia or Asia before, you gotta acclimatize, I guess. It's not good and we need to improve on that, but for now it is what it is. And yeah, we've got those lines, and I'm gonna do arrows now. I use these Malaysian arrows by Hafiz. You don't really, you can turn on vanilla arrows, they look fine. I'm just, you know, I just like these Malaysian arrows by Hafiz. I mean, I think they look cool, so decide to use them. And again, I do page down so that it's not too obvious, right? And if you look at the workshop, you can find arrows, arrow decals for all kinds of country: Thailand, Germany, France, almost everywhere. So yeah, you can specify to your liking, I guess. That's the beauty of playing modded. And of course, you can specify which lane goes where using Traffic Manager, President Edition. Now I'm just going to show you a bit of how you do that. Just click on here, and which one is it? This one, yeah. So you can specify, like mine is like only left turns, right, for the left side. So yeah, I can specify that, so the cars will generally follow that specification. And looking at my reference, this junction has like exit, so like arrows, so I'm going to do that and page down to make them extremely subtle. There you go, got the arrows set up, and we're gonna move on to, we're gonna sort of not beautify, but make the junction look more lived in, or used, how do I say it? So we're gonna use some patches and some decals, to make it look a bit more Malaysian, I guess. And I mean, in my reference, some patches even, you know, cancel out the whole decals, the other decals. So let's try to do this. Let's make it look, I guess, a bit more realistic. Patches are fine. Potholes on the other hand. I've got some patches here and there, maybe a bit more to cover up these kind of lines. And we can use some road wear, road damages as well, to cover up these lines that look a bit too straight. And just remember, every time you plop a decal, to do the page down so that it doesn't look too obvious. And I also like to use stain to give it a bit of texture. And yeah, now we have a kind of realistic, looks very damaged, but I guess kind of looks like my reference here. We can also add some bollards, which is not apparent in my reference, but I've seen these in KL. You can use the brush, the paint tool, to turn these grass areas into concrete. And I'm going to use these black street bollards and use the prop line tool to make a curve and adjust spacing. I think that's looks alright. These bollards are just to, I guess, to prevent cars from using the curb, getting up onto the curb. Okay, the dust, waiting for the dust to settle. I also use, by the way, I have a tutorial on my channel on detailing mods and assets, so things that make it easier for you to detail. For example, as you can see, my selectors are sometimes invisible, so that's one of the mods that you can use. to make it easier for you to detail. And yeah, we have bollards for the curves, and maybe we can do signboards. Yeah, and depending on if you're doing a Thai junction or Philippine junction, maybe you have signs of your own. And Hafiz made some MY Malaysian signs, and you can just plop them like this, and immediately your roads just look Malaysian, right? Another way you can do this is by, if you like, I don't really care too much about signboards, as long as they're there aesthetically, it's fine. I don't want things to be too detailed. You can use procedural objects if you want stuff to be a bit more detailed. And I also do this where I use these PO signs, and I sort of made my own signs in Photoshop. So if you, that's not the right way to use that. And if you shift P, procedural objects, you can pick your own texture. So I've made some, and this is what it looks like, right? I should, and also I use because in my reference in my hometown they have these maybe it's common in Malaysia, I don't know, I don't remember, sort of like stripe poles, right? I take this from a Chevron asset and in the workshop and just put it like that. So maybe I should figure out a way to turn this into an asset, so I can just plop it instead of manually doing this every time. And also you can do curves as well. These are like, I'm not going to show you how to make these curves, it's a whole thing, but this depends on your, there's like red and white curves, there's all white, yellow, black. You know, sometimes I would do yellow, black, red and white, and black and white curves. I like to use this E1 because you can elevate it to your liking, and yeah, it gives you a bit of a Southeast Asian feel. These curves, even India use these kind of curves, Asia pretty much, and maybe not common in the UK. And I think, yeah, we have ourselves a junction, and I want to say I'm going to do a bit more detailing off screen and around the junction, beautify a little bit, and maybe I'll show the time lapse, and after that a cinematic. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope this has been useful. If you have any questions, just, you know, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, just put a comment. I'll try to answer as much as possible. And I hope you've enjoyed this junction, Southeast Asian Malaysian junction. This is the junction, and I want to say thank you also to my Patreon patrons. A bit of a shout out, and yeah, peace.